session where we'll be talking about upskilling for success, how we can be able to navigate the growing demand for Node.js and information security. My name is Esther Gatimo. I'll be your host for this session, and we're really excited to be having this session just to talk about the need for these upcoming skills in tech and what we can do to be able to remain competitive in the tech landscape. So today we are honored to be joined by Dr. Lawrence Nderu. We'll also be joined by Lewis Nganga. So I'll allow Dr. Nderu to just kindly maybe put your video on and unmute. Tell us who you are so that we can start the session.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, the PLP team. Thank you for the invite. I think I am not able to, I think the admin has disabled the video.
Okay, let me see if that can be. Maybe, Isaac, could you assist me so that we can get his video on? So anyway, meanwhile, as we get that sorted.
Yeah. Yes. So
kindly introduce yourself, tell us who you are, what you do. Yeah, so that we can get the session rolling.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Thank you once again, and happy to be here and happy to be talking about something as important as issues about reskilling and the need for us to, as a society, to be able to think about the need for us to be competent for the 21st century. So the first thing I would say is that, as you've said, I'm Lawrence Nderu. I'm based at Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. I'm the chairman, Department of Computing currently, and also a founder of JHub, which is a digital innovation hub that is based at Jomo Kenyatta University, and also a co-founder of the Green Digital Innovation Hub that is based at Konza City. I'm involved, therefore, in the teaching of computer science courses, specifically doing research on AI, ML, and data science and software engineering. Thank you.
Amazing. So I think we'll just start the session, and I usually like to start the session with something like a fun question just to get us in the mood. So my first question for you would be, what was the first piece of technology that fascinated you and made you realize that you wanted to work in tech?
Okay, that's a surprise one. So I think and an interesting one, looking at the journey, because that's what it does. It gives me an opportunity to look at my journey back. And I think what I would say is that for me, the most exciting one was the specific exciting one were the robots that you could see, and these you could be able to see them being done elsewhere, maybe on a video or something. So how people are programming some small robots to be able to do something, maybe navigate on a floor that is already well calibrated. I found that to be very exciting, and still working on that in the Arduino space to build some applications that are in that space of IoT, which of course nowadays is IoT, but we had robots that was more of an engineering approach, but I felt that this is that's the excitement that it brought. It was like feeling that my kiddish spirit of toys, working with toys was rejuvenated. That's the idea.
Awesome. I like your answer. So I think just to start the session and so that we can actually bring home why we are discussing why any individual should be able to navigate and also just to think about upskilling, I'll give a brief background of who Powerland Project is. We are an impact organization. We are driving transformative change by giving learners access to tech education at an affordable cost. So we have a 16-week program in software development, which is a pathway for any young person who's looking to get into the tech space to just be able to start. So where we teach modules such as Python, Dart with Flutter, databases, web development, and also software engineering, and also a soft skill element and entrepreneurship. So what we do at Powerland Project is that once learners go through our program, we usually take them through three key pathways. One, once they go through the program, is that we work through our talent department to get our learners into job pipelines. So in a nutshell, that is proof of work opportunities through jobs and also through internships. The other pathway is the entrepreneurship, where our learners are expected to come up with projects so that once you go through the program, you're actually able to get the tangible skills that are required. And the third pathway, and that's why we are here today, is upskilling. And recently, Powerland Project was able to launch upskilling courses in Node.js, information security, and also PHP developer. So that was just to give us a base on what Powerland Project does. So now, being in the tech space, Dr. Nderu, maybe you could start by giving us an overview of the current state of the developer landscape, and specifically regarding Node.js.
Yeah. So I think what I would say is that why would we be interested, for example, to do a course like Node.js? There is already one of the things that one realizes is that most of the time we want to do courses that will make us competitive in the world and also help us. So there are two approaches the way I see it. One is that you do a course so that you become competitive when it comes to hiring and employment opportunities. That is one. The other one is that you also look at technologies that such that if for example, you are working on something, or you are maybe a startup company, that technology gives you, or you yourself, you are the founder of a certain company, you can be able to use that technology to be able to improve in terms of your capability and your performance as an organization. I think there could be another one, number three, which I can think about, which means that you want to also be in the loop. You don't want to be left behind when people are talking about modern day technologies and modern way of development. So what I would say is that there is the current state of development regarding it is that it's highly dynamic. Node.js, this area is highly dynamic and also evolving. As you know, Node.js is based on what you have in JavaScript, so very important kind of technology that we have in JavaScript. So there's a lot of interest in having that, so that you have JavaScript there's actually a paper that I read that was talking about what we call the rise of JavaScript. So JavaScript is one language that is highly popular. And because of that, Node.js is, of course, founded on that. So there's a lot of interesting areas that it can be used. One of them that I can think about off the mind is, for example, real-time applications. Real-time applications are applications that have, if you think about, for example, something that is going to be able to respond to real-time applications, you are thinking about things that work with input-output model in embedded systems. So, and because of the fact that it supports areas such as event-driven programming, it supports non-blocking of input-output. So it is a very popular application for building real-time applications, and therefore supports real-time communication. The other one, I think, is microservice architecture, which is something that we all know that the microservice architecture is very popular as a design pattern in development, so that you have yeah. So now I think it's okay now. So you have
And I think just a minute, Prof. Also, maybe I think come closer to your mic. We are getting you like in bits, so that you're more clear.
Okay. And now how is that?
Much better.
Okay. So what I was saying is that you have things like microservice architecture, and I've looked at some of the applications that are built within that design pattern, because it's a design pattern that entails the issue of reproducibility of applications. The other one is AI and machine learning, which is an area that I have a lot of interest in. You have tools like TensorFlow.js, which provides for capability for users to design applications that they can use on their mobile devices. So it is one area that is also gaining a lot of attraction, because you can build application like on mobile phones and then be able deploy them on a mobile phone and be able to have customers using them. We all know how mobile phone is gaining is popular, and I believe that there is enough talk around how we should be able to design applications that can be able to be used on that. I think those, and also the fact that you can be able to have the server-side rendering. I mean, you can be able to build applications in which a lot of heavy loading, heavy work is being done on the server side. And then you have, which is possible now on Node.js, that a lot of work or workload can be done on the backend. And then you have the work rendered to the browser or even to the client side in a simple way. I think that is also very attractive. So those are some of the things that I think are making it very popular. And I think it will only continue growing. So I see, if you look at the building website, you will be able to see the rise of JavaScript is very popular, and Node.js is one of them.
Thanks for that. And maybe just where can someone start? If you want to get those skills, where can you start as a learner? Because most of the people who are joining these sessions are learners who would want to understand, or rather to navigate such a space. Where can one start?
Okay, so we are in a timeline where each day you should be able to look at yourself as an opportunity to continue upskilling yourself. We call it long life learning. So where you are able to, every now and then, we should be able to work to continue making sure that we upskill ourselves and grow our skills. And I think number one is that there exists a lot of content that is already online. But what you will find if you join a community of people who are pursuing a certain course, and also where there is some level of people looking at what you are doing. I mean, there are people who are interested in what you are doing. There are people who will support you in the journey. It is different from you just joining a community and trying to run it on your own. Most of the time, when you are doing it on your own, you may find some challenges and you just stop at that. And the joining itself means that there's a drive that drove you into going to that. So one of the things I would say is that you have what PLP is offering in terms of advanced courses to be able for users to be able to join a community of active runners who are interested in such technology. The beauty of it is that you have mentors who can provide that level of engagement. You also have, I believe that community itself, you have the support, the infrastructure that can support you as you do the work. So that should be able to support your running in that case. So those are some of the ways and some of the reasons why I would say. So the community, online tools exist and online resources exist, but it is also good for one to join the communities where they can be able to gain this kind of experience.
Amazing. And to the guys joining, kindly, if you have any questions, we will be able to answer them at the tail end of this session. So please make sure you just put that on the chat. We can be able to answer that as we go on. So next question to you, Dr. Nderu, is what are the key skills that Node.js developers need to focus on to stay competitive in today's market?
Now, so I think that is there are some of them that are just regular things that you will need to know, but there are also ones maybe I can say that are related to the first answer that I gave on the issue of where Node.js is being used on real-time applications. One of them is if you think about real-time application development, you will need skills in developing those. Otherwise, Node.js is, as I have said, is very well equipped for you to be able to develop real applications in that area. So one area that I would say is important is developing of technologies, like I mentioned, on WebSockets, right? So you will need, as a developer, to make sure that you keep yourself abreast on real-time application development. People are looking at how, for example, if it's a chatbot, how can I be able to create a chatbot that my customers can be able to engage with the clients on real-time basis. Another very important thing is JavaScript. And I think those developers who are in the house, they know how JavaScript is a tricky language. In fact, there are jokes within the world of tech on how JavaScript sometimes can have inconsistency in some areas, and how even some people saying, I use JavaScript for the last 20 years, but I don't know even what JavaScript is all about. Because there is proficiency in that, typewrite, and also the ability to use TypeScript and also use JavaScript is also very important. The mastering of the core language, that is JavaScript. And the reason why I would say that is because even other frameworks that are coming, they are borrowing on that JavaScript. So understanding JavaScript and then going ahead and also understanding the way TypeScript works is also crucial in that. I also think that the frameworks, the Node.js framework, the Node familiarity with things like Express.js, familiarity with like Next.js, which I think in one of the cases we are working on, we are using it for the purpose of building a real-time a beekeeping application, a smart beekeeping application. I've seen it work and it's building very well. Also, building of RESTful APIs. That is something that APIs is big. In fact, most organizations nowadays, they are calling themselves API fast organizations because you want to build systems that even if they are so desperate, I mean, they are very different. They can be able to communicate with each other. So building and consuming them, I think that is also a very, very important. And like I said also the last one, microservice architecture still has its own position, and therefore you will need to keep yourself abreast on what is happening in that space.
Okay, amazing. You've mentioned a few things that maybe as a one, I think a techie would more likely understand what those things are. So for me, it's more of just ensuring that our learners understand the concepts that are required for them to be able to remain competitive. And I think Lewis has joined. Lewis was was supposed to come in and talk about information security. So I think Isaac kindly assist in making him a panelist. So as we continue, maybe just to follow up on your question, what are some of the effective strategies? Sorry. We've talked about the skills. Now we are going to the demand. How has the demand for Node.js developers evolved over the past few years, and what trends do you see in the future?
Okay, so like I said, number one is that the part that I said, if you look at media giants, like I think Microsoft, they already have the ability to integrate technologies like Node.js in their other DevOps. So you have that as part of that. So which means that when you're building things like e-commerce applications, which is also where there's need for us to build scalable applications, there's also need for us to think about how we build applications that that can be able to scale up. I think that is the main aspect around that. You have seen, if you think about a company like Walmart, where the growth of customer is, your customer base is every time rising. So you will need to think about, that's one area that I see a lot of using it. E-commerce, finance and banking is also another area that maybe you need real-time systems and that, and media and entertainment, healthcare, because of IoT. So here, I would say that real-time monitoring, like say you have systems that you can use for real-time monitoring, I would find that to be important. And of course, when I talked about e-commerce, the retail sector is also another one that is very important.
Okay, very insightful. And thank you, Lewis, for joining. We had started the session, and yeah, you mentioned you were having a session. So karibu sana.
Thank you.
Karibu sana. So Lewis, maybe you could start by introducing yourself. We had started the session where Dr. Nderu was talking about how guys can be able to navigate the growing demand for Node.js. And we are really excited to have you on board as well to talk more about information security. So karibu sana, kindly introduce yourself, tell us who you are, then we can jump right into the questions.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to have this opportunity to share my insights. So I'm Luis Nganga, CEO of Foresight Tech Group, co-founder of Africa Hackon. The main purpose, our main goal and objective is to help businesses secure themselves. Of course, in this cyber age where everything is online, of course, threats and all those kind of things show up a bit more frequently than some years back. So that is our main role and purpose, to help businesses secure themselves, and well, that translates to a lot of growth for those businesses.
Awesome. And just to start you off, I like to start with a fun question. We had started that off with Dr. Nderu. So you being in the tech space, what was the first piece of technology that fascinated you and made you realize you wanted to work in tech?
Computers. I think just the general sense of computers, and I'd say back in high school, when we started tinkering with computers in the computer lab and sending messages over the command prompts and those kind of things, I think that is what triggered my initial interest and just the general curiosity of how things work. Why, basically we say input and output, but then so why does it process the data, how it processes it, or why are you seeing information in this format and not in that format, kind of thing. So that played a big role into how I decided to get into technology.
Awesome. I like that. How long have you been in tech?
Should be 15 years or more. Yeah. 15
Okay,
years
awesome.
or more. Yeah.
So I think we can just recap, just to give you some background on why we are actually doing this session. And thanks again for joining. Also, Dr. Nderu, thank you for joining. So I'll just give some background on who we are as Powerland, just to catch you up. So Powerland Project is an impact organization. We are providing young Africans with access to affordable and accessible tech training. And we do that through our 16-week program in software development, where we offer modules such as Python, web development, databases, that with Flutter, software engineering, so that anyone can be able to learn and use technologies such as ChatGPT. And also we offer the soft skills so that you as a techie, as much as you're able to do the technical bit of it, you're able to also communicate well. So some of our career pathways include, once learners go through our program, we work with partners so that we can be able to get our learners into job pipelines. So be it internships or even job opportunities. We also work with organizations and startups who want to help our learners innovate, because one of the things that you do when you go through the program, you're supposed to come up with a project so that you can be able to actually use the skills that you've gained. And the last bit of it is the upskilling, where we work with partners. And recently, Powerland Project has been able to launch role-based courses so that our learners can be able to actually get the skills that are required so that they remain competitive. So we have role-based courses in Node.js, PHP developer, and information security. So the reason we wanted to have this conversation is so that anyone who's thinking, okay, maybe I want to do Node.js, maybe I want to do information security, they would learn from people who've been there, so that they can be able to actually make decisions based on what they've heard, or even they do not have to recreate the wheel. They can hear maybe from Dr. Nderu, they can hear from Lewis and say, okay, this is what I would want to do. So I hope that is a good background to be able to start you off. So just to get you to the first question, the first question on information security, maybe could you provide an overview of the current landscape of information security and the importance in today's tech industry?
What I can say is that currently, because of technology adoption, information security has become part and parcel of any business. When I think of any business, I mean from government to manufacturing to even we ourselves as individuals, because each one of us, I'm sure at some point, has received a message from the people we refer to as the committee people. Click this for this, or you've won, I don't know, 10 million, and for you to get 10 million, this is what you need to do. So that is one aspect of it. It's called social engineering. So basically just trick you into doing a set of actions, and then they're able to fleece your money. So that is more prevalent in every aspect of society right now because of technology adoption. So the landscape is it's very wide, it's very vast. There are so many things to do, there's so many things to achieve. And maybe just as a follow-up, for people wondering how they get themselves into that field, there are a variety of courses out there, which touch on different aspects. So there are some that touch on technical aspects. There are some that touch on compliance or soft aspects of the industry. So by soft aspects, it just means that you're focused on compliance, you're focused on ensuring that people are well trained in terms of social engineering, social awareness. Then, of course, there's a technical aspect. The majority one that people know is the hacking part, because, well, people know, well, we get hacked. I don't know, our website was done what and what. So that's the more prominent side. But underneath that, there's also the defense side. So you help businesses to protect themselves in terms of, technologies they use. How do you secure those technologies? Whether it's financial institutions, whether it's government, whether it's small businesses. So the industry is quite vast. You can be multi-skilled as well in the same industry. So you can have an aspect of technical and soft skills as well. So the ability to gel into compliance requirements and all those kind of things.
Amazing. I like how you brought out what happens in community, because some of us do not understand, or unless you're hacked, then you understand actually that is why you need those skills. So maybe the second question to you would be, what are the most in-demand skills in the field of information security right now?
One is compliance. Guys doing compliance are very much in demand. Locally, we have the Data Protection Act. So every business needs to have some level of compliance, whether you process customer data or you store customer data or you just basically interacting with customer data. So there's some level of compliance required to achieve that. So that's one aspect. There's also the need for more hackers, I'd say, white hat hackers or the good hackers. We don't want the bad people a lot. They make life difficult for many reasons. But we also want those technical skills, both from an attacking perspective and a defense perspective. Because those two teams work in tandem, they are correlated, so that they are able to achieve the security objectives. So I'd say those three aspects are pretty much in demand. They would never lack in any institution. Any decent institution will not lack at least one of them, whether a technical aspect or a compliance aspect.
Awesome. So technical and compliance. So back to you, Dr. Nderu. You've talked about the demand for Node.js developers. Maybe could you share some examples of some of the industries or companies where Node.js skills are particularly in demand?
Yeah, thank you. And nice to see you, Revis. I think, like you always say, tech space is so wide that there are always a lot of opportunities. You just need to be good in your trade, and opportunities are there. I think that's a very good one. And what you have said, I agree with it, that the catch-up game is something that most of us play in the cybersecurity space. And you've pointed out what people need to think. I think going to the question that you asked us is that related to the issues around what are some of the companies using. Like I said, JavaScript, the rise of JavaScript there are a lot of documents written alongside the question of the rise of JavaScript. And therefore, you can see to a good extent that big companies also have agreed to that. Even I pointed out companies like Microsoft, and I say, if you look at their support for Node.js as a technology within their CI/CD framework, the Microsoft as a development framework, that in itself shows the belief that they have in the way that technology is going. You have even companies that tend to build systems that have a real-time interaction with the clients, like Netflix. They really find that to be a very attractive kind of technology because it provides that level of capability that you can be able to add even data from various sensors and be able to work with it. I think also one other that is maybe what most people who are working in most offices will find as a technology that is used is things like Slack. So you know Slack as a tool, and you know the history very interesting history of the way it started and how it went up. As a messaging platform, real time is also very important. And that's why you find that even Slack as a company has used that as an example of what they have in their offering.
Maybe just to push further on your answers, maybe could you share more on how it's utilized on Netflix and maybe on Slack with the messaging?
So the first thing that we argued about the capability that it provides is that you can do WebSocket programming using it. So because of that, and it provides what this conversation is all about, the fact that you can be able to have security and ingrained into it, the way you write your code structure. So that means that that in itself is the most attractive thing about the ability for it to communicate real time. So WebSockets programming, when you are covering that, I think that should be the main aspect around the biggest strength on why it can be used for building even chatting systems, real-time applications, and this kind of thing. And scalability is part of it, that scaling applications is also something that you can be able to implement microservices in it so that it can scale, and therefore disparate applications can be able to communicate. And as it grows, you are not worried about the fact that it becomes a big bottleneck, and it can be able to grow as the need comes.
Okay, amazing. And I think also to our guests or our attendees, could you, if you have any questions regarding what we're speaking about, we'd be happy to answer to that at the end of this. So back to you, Lewis. You talked about the many cyber threats. So maybe you could talk about the demand for information security professionals, how that has changed with the increasing number of cyber threats. You've talked about the messages we all get from committee. So maybe you could get into that.
Wow, the demand is there. Because with technology, I'd say overall with technology, I'd say if you're very skilled, and you know what it is that you're up to with your job, you will never lack an opportunity. Actually, you'll have more than enough opportunities at your plate. So the demand is there. There's a lot of demand, even for us as businesses that provide security to different entities. We're always looking for skilled people. At any given point in time, we're always looking for someone who is skilled. So the demand is there. It's immense. I'll give you an example. Say financial institutions, say our tier 1 banks. So the big banks, right? They have an average of 15 to 20 people on cybersecurity only. And some years back, at best, it was 2 people or 1 person. So you see, that's an exponential growth in just a matter of less than 10 years or so. So the demand is there. The demand for highly skilled and specialized skill is always there. And for everyone that looks to get into the field, so long as you're good at it, there's always an opportunity waiting for you somewhere. You will not, you may not even tarmac for so long. Not even a lot, actually. And then there are also communities that are there, like Africa Hackon. I know even for developers, there are many communities, even based on the programming languages that someone has specialized in. I know there's Python, there's Node, there's Java. All those guys have communities. So being able to join those communities, and as well as learning from peers that are experienced in the industry, will always ensure that someone somewhere will spot your talent early enough, and they'll be able to pick and nurture you as soon as possible. We've done this for Africa Hackon, I think since 2014. So it's quite a number of years. And I can confidently say that more than 40 to 50 people that we've mentored have very decent jobs in country and out country as well. Yeah.
Amazing. I like that you've mentioned the fact that one can rely on mentors just to, get better at their skill, and also the community. Maybe I could mention at this point that at Powerland Project, we have a community of over 14,000 learners who've gone through our program, and also guys who coming from different communities, like what you've mentioned from Africa Hackon. And what we do in the community is that we share insights. We have events where learners can be able to actually learn from things that are happening within the ecosystem. So I really like that point. So back to you, Dr. Nderu. What steps can aspiring developers take to bridge the skill gap in Node.js?
So I would say, like any other skill, you need to usually at some point you need to have a big what we call a good plan of how or what you need to achieve, and at some point also your interest is also plays a bigger role, because as I've said, we are focusing on now being a very good person in a certain area, being highly skilled in a certain area, and becoming highly competitive. Because if you take, for example, Node.js as a programmer, as a programming language, once you are in that community and you surmount the challenges that exist initially in identifying where you are, then you can be able to start. So one of the areas that I see one can be able to start from is by, as Lewis has said, joining those communities of people interested in that. It would be a very good starting point. And as a matter of fact, doing it alone sometimes can be overbearing, especially when you're looking at the new technologies. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Most of the time when you're in a community, there are things that people will share with you, and they can be able to show you that how you can navigate some of the challenges that they may be experienced. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, as I've said. The other thing I think that is also important is to look at even hackathon that relates to that. One can join those kind of events, and also enroll to, like I think, providing this kind of a course and being able to join a community is a good entry point that you can now start. A lot of efforts, of course, in programming and any other course goes also to talk about your motivation, the attitude, and the kind of mentorship and the kind of environment that you are in. Is it an environment that pushes you to think further about this kind of thing? So I would say that really, for me, that is where I would find a lot of focus being, that there is a lot of interest in understanding the communities that you can start from, and a lot of support would exist in those communities to make you be able to cover some levels of.
Awesome. I really like the hackathon idea, because we do a lot of hackathons, and the need, or rather the idea for that, is just to get our learners to be able to just use the skills that they've been able to gain within the program, and also just to be innovative. So that if you have skills in Node.js, you can actually think beyond what are the solutions that you can be able to solve. So back to you, Lewis. Maybe you could highlight what are some of the key challenges and opportunities. I think you mentioned opportunities. Maybe what are some of the challenges that one can, rather in the information security field?
Wow, challenges are many. I think just like any industry, challenges are quite many. Like right now, I'd say the one thing that most businesses are grappling with is what we call DevSecOps. So it's development, security, and operations. So it's having developers integrated into the security cycle, and the other way around as well, having security within the software development lifecycle. So that is one of the biggest opportunities. And getting there really, as a person who is starting, I think I'll just join this with one of the questions that was asked, that foundational knowledge in technology is sufficient. It would ideally help you to sort of navigate through what I'd say the basic terms. Especially people in technology tend to throw around terms. You'll hear, I don't know, OSI model. Like, I'm sure you hear Node.js, JavaScript. Why is it called JS? And then there's JavaScript. Same thing runs around. So a basic fundamental of understanding technologies is just sufficient, so that you're able to get into the field. And in terms of certifications as well, there are quite many. You can, there's what I know PLP is doing. So you can get your certification in 4 to 6 weeks, with the end goal of being able to have you in a placement area. Of course, it doesn't end at that. I think with the rate at which technology grows, then there is the constant need for you to always uplift your technologies at any given point in time. So that means you are always studying for any new technology that shows up. You're always able to onboard yourself. Generally, they don't take too long, 6 months at most. 1 year if it's very long and intense, and also depending on the experience levels. So a bit more experienced people tend to take a shorter time. If you're new to it, and by new I mean just barely new to the industry, could take you like 6 months or so, or 1 year, depending on the course that you're taking. But at the end of the day, they're all manner of certifications. I'd say they are very easy to get on board. And then, of course, they are the more specialized ones that would get you in a specific field. So there are many opportunities, I'd say. I don't know, I'm answering questions. Do you need a degree? No, like for us, even when we hire, we are more concerned about the skill. And I know coming from our Kenyan industries that you need a degree, then you need several certifications to up top. Of course, a degree helps because it sort of fixes your fundamentals, but at the end of the day, it's going to sound controversial, but you don't need it so much. There are enough people that never completed theirs, and they are doing pretty much well. But at the end of the day, when you think about it from a life perspective, having a degree and a certification is good. It's good for career growth because sometimes you may end up in an employment situation where they will accept you for the skill, but then they'll come back and tell you, you need a degree or something. So situations are different. It's always good to cover all grounds at the end of the day. I think the certificate of participation, Esther can answer that. Yes, so there are two elements of information security. It will be very practical at the end of the day. So that means you will learn how different kind of attacks are performed. How do you look at vulnerabilities? How do you take advantage of those vulnerabilities? And as well as understanding the business impact of those vulnerabilities to the business. So there are very many aspects to look at it because at the end of the day, technology is no longer independent of the business. It is part of the business. It is a driver of the business as well.
Very, very good insights. And maybe I'd want Dr. Nderu to chime in. Being in the university, does one need a degree or should we just push just to have the skills? Because one of the things that we're doing at Powerland, and I want to just keep bringing what we're doing at Powerland, is that before you graduate, we want to ensure that our learners have the skills. They can actually say what they say they can do. Because if I have skills in Python, can I be able to code using Python? As opposed to just having a certificate and saying, okay, I'm a Python developer, but I cannot use the skills. And that's why for you to graduate, we usually ensure that you come up with a project so that you can actually use the skills that you've gained to create solutions around maybe the problems that you're facing every day. So Dr. Nderu, I want you to chime in on the need for degrees or the technical skills that are required.
Yeah, so I think Revis has mentioned a very. If you were closer, we would fight anyway. I'm just saying for sure. What you have said, Revis, is true. That there has been, if you look at the trends within our communities, there has been a lot of employers are focusing now on the skill set or what you can be able to do. What I know, however, is that, as he has rightly said, is that the only thing that brings a problem within our ecosystem is to think the amount of resources that you need to invest into getting a degree and the eventual outcome that comes, is it commensurate? Usually that is what I see as the top question that people are asking. I remember a degree takes you, for example, 4 years. And then you have somebody coming up with a success story. I went for a bootcamp for 6 months. I'm earning a 6-figure salary. So it tells you that there's a, but those stories and I've worked with people who have no degree, of course, and they are doing very well in the industry out there. However, my argument coming from the university is that given an opportunity, even in the university, and with a clear focus of what you need to get in terms of skills, and even not shying away from the various program or courses, and even doing projects, as you've said, it can also be a very enriching environment. University itself is a very enriching environment. I would be preaching water and drinking wine if I said that having spent a lot of time in the university and knowing that I meet people who are also doing very great things who are passed through the hands of the university. So it's the way I would say is that one has to look at the balance between what they get from the whole experience. You pay a lot of money, of course, knowing how university is expensive and all that. And then you're looking at the eventual outcome. In fact, the data that was released by COOPS, the one that is currently, seems to suggest that there is a good move of good number of people who are moving towards, for example, TVETs, and even courses that people are doing to try and become more productive immediately. So the universities themselves needs, of course, to evolve, and that's for sure because of the dinosaur kind of philosophy, which we need to evolve. But they also have a role somewhere. And I would say that if you have an opportunity, because this is also an opportunity, you could consider how you can be able to use the two of the worlds to become competitive. Because even as a developer, there gets somewhere where you'll now need to read things. There are some skills that university teaches you that will now require you to use that, not just sitting down and coding. At some point, coding is not maybe what you do every time. You read things and all that.
Yes.
Awesome. Like, sorry, just go fast, Lois.
Oh, sorry, just to add the same. I think as well as what Nderu said is that you take advantage of that university environment to enrich yourself with as many courses as possible without so much pressure at the end of the day, because you have all the time. I mean, when uni closes, you have 3 months of holiday. 3 months is just enough to pick a whole course, get good at it, and you have enough time to practice on the same. That translates is that by the time you are done with school, then you have accumulated a set of skills that will be quite advantageous when an employer looks at you.
I totally agree with both the insights shared by both of you. So I've seen there are so many questions coming in, and I don't want to keep you guys waiting, but I have a few more questions. Lewis, maybe you could, I think you spoke about certification and how that plays in advancing a career in information security. Maybe you could talk about how important is hands-on experience, such as information security.
It's very important. But you know, the good thing is with technology, sometimes you don't even need that internship. There are so many open source projects, both from security and from development, that someone can get hold of and try and contribute in any way. So those projects are very important because they upskill you in a real world environment, but you didn't even have to struggle to look for an internship, for instance. Of course, internship helps over and above the skill. It helps you with the ability, of course, now the soft skills, interacting with people, how do you interact with different levels of people within the organization. And you know, basically those kind of elements are important. But more so even for us, when we look at people we are hiring, we ask them what kind of side projects are you involved in. So maybe someone will give a GitHub link, or they say, I have, I don't know, X number of virtual machines. This is what I'm trying to train myself on, or that kind of thing. So that plays a very big role, even when someone is getting onboarded.
Yeah, I really like that point. So back to you, Dr. Nderu. How can a developer showcase their Node.js skills to potential employers?
And that goes even to what Remis has just mentioned, the issue of that there are so many open source projects that one can start. I see that even when you go for interviews, I think this is something that our graduates will need to hear and be able to see the need, that self-branding. If some of these things one knew when you are in first year, you would have started the first day of joining the university, you would have started by opening up a GitHub, so that every project that you take, and enroll to even open source projects, contribute to them, think of problems. that I think the culture we have in Kenya is called the kujituma culture, where you try to make sure that if there are problems, you start building solutions to them, thinking about how that solution should work, and then trying to even get people interested in what you're working. How do you do that? There are, of course, nowadays very many outlets where you can talk about what you're doing, the challenges you're experiencing, and how people would be interested in seeing the product that you're building. So number one is showcase them. I would say the open source projects that already there is already a culture on the impact that open source projects do have. Well done, well documented, some of them. People try out things. If you fail, the community is not ruthless. They will not shame you. They will not shame you. They will try to support you. We know that in what we see in communities like Stack Overflow, those kind of things, you building and asking questions and within a certain kind of leeway. So I would say open source projects, one way in which you can do that. Also, there are companies in Kenya, and I think this is where now we talk of industry pain points. An industry may have a problem and they know it, and this is where you may need to talk to them and hear what they are saying that they have as a pain point. But also, you can see some challenges in a company. You may go to a company and realize that the way they are working or the way they are doing things, they need a kind of a solution that you can think about and build for them. And in that case, once you go maybe to their CEO and tell them, I've been building this solution for your company, they find it's you're bound to already start getting a lot of attention because of the solution you're building. So it's the whole culture of Kujituma. I would say that you identify that there is this problem, you start solving it. You look at open source project, you work on that internship, and it's also an opportunity to maybe have teams that you can work.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I like how you've been able to weave into what Lewis has mentioned. So I think just to I want to ask the last two questions to both of you, then we can get into the questions, then we can wrap up the session. But the session has really been quite informative. So Lewis, maybe you could share any expert advice that you'd have and any mentorship ideas that you could help any learner who's joined to be able to tackle the real world information security challenges.
I'd say one, join communities. There are many of them. Even in the information security sector, there's Africa Hackon. You mentioned PLP with over 14,000 students. So there are all those communities. So I think one is to join communities. Secondly, in terms of information securities, don't get into the bad books. So basically, don't do anything that would get you to prison. It's very easy for that to happen. So always maintain your integrity and ethical standards. They do play a very big role. Thirdly is that ensure that the skill is up top. And at any given point in time, it will always pay back.
Okay, amazing. And how does one keep themselves from not from not finding themselves in prison? How can one tell when they are crossing that that bridge?
Well, of course, doing things that you don't have permission to do. Of course, if it's testing out a website and you don't have permission for that from the owners of the website or the business, then that will get you in trouble in many ways. Of course, the people that will get you are still some of us in the same field who do forensics. So we'll just track back and get you where you are from. So at the end of the day, it's to ensure that if you're going to do something that is external, ensure that you have proper authorization from the owners. So that it has both benefits. You get to showcase your skill and then at the same time they get to value what it is that you've done for them.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much for that. So I think we'll get to the questions that I've seen have been pasted on the group. Just give me a minute to just bring them out. So there's one person who's asked, I think this is for you, Dr. Nderu, is there any difference between Python and Node.js in a real-time application development?
So I think what I would say is that if I was to design a system that is a real-time application, these two technologies have they already have their own niche, so to say. Python is well known for data science, machine learning programs, but it's a very dynamic and a language that is really growing in terms of being able to solve problems related to creating such systems. Of course, you understand that we have frameworks within Python that can help you build systems of that nature, even things like Django. So it's possible to have that. And Node.js is more related to, as I said, cross-platform applications can really benefit from that. So the difference is mainly on the niche, which I think they have cut across as being well established in. Python is known for data science, ML projects and all that kind of thing. Node is known for creating systems that are already by default they can support concurrency control, these kind of things that they can be able to communicate. That possibility is there with Node.js, and I think that's a strength that exists in its design. But that doesn't mean that there are no frameworks that one can use to be able to take advantage of Python in the same sector.
Okay, thanks for that. I hope that answers your question, Keith. I don't know if there's a question on information security. So there's one question that says, can I just get into the information security field with no prior experience and a foundation of network engineering? Maybe that is for you, Lewis.
Yes, you can. Because if you already have network engineering as a background, then you pretty much understand how systems operate and communicate. So getting into security, really, you just need maybe a 1 month, 2 months, 3 months course. Of course, a lot of practice. That phase, you can't really bypass it. And you should be good to go.
So the other question I see is, do you need a degree in tech to get employed? I think we answered that. Maybe you can repeat that, Lewis, so that anyone who's asking that question can have an understanding.
You'll make Nderu come for me on the micro on the from the screen. You don't and you do. So why I'm saying you don't is that it's a skill-based thing. So the better the skill, chances of you getting hired are very high. You do because sometimes it's not us techies that recruit, it's HR that recruits. So HR will come back and say, okay, does this person have a degree? No. Okay, so you may miss an opportunity based on that. Or you may get because of that as well. So it's a catch. I'd say if the opportunity is there, take it. That gives you that 4-year period, 3-year period really gives you a lot of time to practice on so many skills that would otherwise have taken a longer period of time. So each of both has quite the advantage. So it's what works for each person.
Yeah.
But they are both really important.
Yeah, I think it's a catch-2 situation, and I think it's important to have that balance where you have the university degree so that you can be able to get into the roles that are required, but you also have the technical skills to be able to navigate the tech landscape. So I agree with that. So I can see that some guys are asking what will be the mode of delivery for a program. Our programs are virtual. Then there's one who asks, can I pay now, then study in the next cohort? Most definitely, we can reach out to you just to give you more information on that. At the end of the lessons, will there be a certificate of participation? Definitely. You need the certificate, but also as mentioned, you'd actually need the technical skills that are required to be able to say, I have this certification in information security, but I can be able to actually do what I say I can do. So I think to my panelists, we've come to the end of the session. I don't know if I've answered all the questions, but thank you so much, Lewis, and also Dr. Nderu. I have I feel like I've enjoyed the session so much. On this side, feel like I've had so much fun just hosting this session. The insights were amazing. We'd be happy to host you guys again. We've actually launched a session where we'll be having regular info sessions just to be able to get people insights so that people are not recreating the wheel, or people actually learn from people who've been there before. So thank you so much, Lewis. Thank you so much, Dr. Nderu, for making time. We've been able to talk about upskilling for success and how one can be able to navigate the growing demand for Node.js and information security. Thanks again so much. I have nothing else to add, but we've really had an insightful session. Really like the insights that have been shared. And yeah, looking forward to hosting you guys again. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So maybe before we close, I can maybe ask you guys to just maybe closing remarks, anything that you'd want the guys who've joined to remember.
I'd say keep on doing it. Get the skill as much as possible.
Mhm.
You will always have a place.
Thank you, Dr. Nderu.
So I think for me, what I would say, ring it on the topics that we are covering is that the tech space is one area that is like, well, every time there are new ideas, new technologies, what matters is the fundamentals. And I think fundamentals, once you have the fundamentals right, even if other things come, other technology, you can be able to comprehend them, you can run them on your own. And also everybody should be aware of the impact that AI is having in all these quarters, in every sector, so that you can be able to visualize that perhaps your visual development may not necessarily be the path it will take. AI can break it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And yeah, thanks again. And anyone who's joined who'd want to start off their journey to take up skills like Node.js, the role-based courses, and also information security, PLP is offering these courses at a very affordable cost. So please just go to our website, powerlandproject.org. You'll be able to get more information on that. So thank you so much again to our panelists. And I hope everyone who joined found the session valuable. Thank you so much and have a great day ahead.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.